you write, the kind of person who is likely to be a Trump extremist is also likely to have impaired or suboptimal brain function in an important region known as the prefrontal cortex. So that, in theory, if that predated the extremism, might be a causal factor towards it or a contributing factor. Or in theory, I don't understand the process. It could be an effect of it. Where exactly, what direction is the causal arrow like in that?
Yeah, so there's always this trouble with like cause versus correlation. So it may be a cause, there may be some other root cause that is leading to both of these things. But there have been studies that have shown that there are correlations between fundamentalism and impaired prefrontal cortex functioning. The reason that's important is because prefrontal cortex function is what is responsible for our rational mind. So we might get scared. Our amygdala, the part of the brain that's responsible for the fear response, might get triggered by something we see in the news. But the prefrontal cortex job is to kick in and kind of calm that and make sure that the behavior is rational and we're not just becoming more tribalistic. So you see it also with people with drug addiction, with like cocaine use and alcoholics. You see it in all these scenarios where basically people aren't using their best judgment. So basically we need to teach people how to strengthen this muscle that is the prefrontal cortex. One thing to do is just try to gain an awareness of like your emotions and how you're responding to things. And that ability to do that, that's actually part of the prefrontal cortex. So whenever you try to step outside yourself and look at yourself like objectively, we're strengthening that muscle. Meditation exercises, there are attention training tasks, like computerized tasks that you can do. But it's really about just becoming aware of the way we're controlled by our fears. Because if we don't, we just play this game that puts us on this trajectory towards increased division, and then eventually something like a civil war. Even if it's like a cold civil war, there will still be aggression and violence. And getting a handle on that means using our rational mind.
Wow. Okay, well, it sounds like a lot of work potentially, but the stakes, arguably couldn't be higher, both individually and for our democracy. So, good advice there. Bobby, I came across your work on Raw Story, and everyone, if you're watching this and you find the topic interesting, we're just scratching the surface of what Bobby is talking about. So that's available there. But before we go, I also wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about your other work. So tell me about Road to Omega.
So it's really related to this. It's about designing a plan that will heal the division, bring people together under a unifying worldview. And another goal of it is to design a logical reasoning system that can provide something like a universal approach to determining truth. So to talk about the first thing, it goes back to when I said that we can align interests. So progressives and right-wingers believe that Washington is broken, that there's corruption in politics, that there's media bias. So by coming together and focusing on the things that we agree about rather than our differences, that's a way to build a bridge. So that's really the first start. The project specifically talks about a worldview that's a science-inspired worldview and an evolutionary-inspired worldview. And that worldview says that intelligent life basically has this purpose, and the purpose of life is to continue the existence of life. And so by understanding that we all have these common existential threats like climate change, like growing income inequality, the pandemic, then we can start to come together because we have a common enemy. So it's kind of using this idea that, we have these worldviews and that they divide us into tribes in a way that unites us, sort of like an Independence Day when you have the aliens and then everybody united against them. So it's kind of like a trick, but it's what we need to do. We need to establish a common enemy. The logical reasoning system is based on something called Bayesian reasoning. And that's basically an approach to statistics that scientists use to update their theories when new evidence comes in. So basically, how the system works is, first of all, you're never 100% certain that your theory is the right theory, because the world's a complicated place. Every model is going to have some uncertainty or ignorance. So we need to create room for that. One thing that I think we do wrong, and even scientists do this, is overstating our certainty about something.
Mm-hmm.
So when we had the vaccine, CDC made this announcement that we could all stop wearing masks, and that there was no danger of a variant. I understand why they did that. They wanted to incentivize people to get the vaccine because they can go, hey, now we don't have to wear a mask. A lot of people didn't want to wear a mask. But when we have to walk that back, it makes the CDC look like they have no idea what's going on. And that plays into the conspiracy theories, because they're either look, they don't know what they're talking about, or there's some other plan that we don't see. Like now they're saying you might need a booster. So to fight these conspiracy theories, we need to say from the beginning, the vaccine works. It's the safest option you have, but there may be these side effects. There actually probably will be these side effects, so you can expect them. And if those happen, it's not reason to lose faith in the vaccine.
Sure.
So the Bayesian reasoning system, just to finish that up, you consider all possible theories, you write down your evidence for each theory, and then you rate the probability of each theory, how likely it is to be true. Now, we're not going to agree on that in the beginning, because that's, a lot of things are subjective in that, but we will start to converge on truth in the next step. So the next step is we use those theories to make very specific predictions about the future. And when we make predictions, that's kind of holding people's feet to the fire, because they could be right or wrong. And they need to be predictions that can be proven wrong. But if those predictions turn out to be wrong, then basically you look at the theories again, and then you correct the probability ratings to reflect that new information. So if someone said the vaccine is like a bioweapon that the rich is using against the poor, that theory would get myth busted when you start seeing like wealthy people using the vaccine or catching COVID if they thought like the virus was some sort of bioweapon. So it won't get us agreeing at the beginning, but because it forces people to make predictions, the idea is that you'll start to converge on some sort of objective truth. And I do think some of the conspiracy theorists at least will love this because they love making videos and talking about the evidence, and they have these like 2-hour videos going through all these very specific things. And I think they'll have fun with this. I think it'll show them that, hey, we're listening to you. Like, we're willing to look at your theory and what you've mapped out. But in most of these cases, you'll see that they don't stand up to scrutiny. And when one of those prediction fails, like I know QAnon had some sort of story like storming the Capitol, like there was something that was going to happen. It was like a sex trafficking ring was going to get busted and all these people were going to go down. At the moment the conspiracy theory fails, that's when the people are vulnerable to like people coming in with reason and being like, hey, that thing that guy was telling you didn't pan out. Maybe you should question that. But we don't do that at the right time. And then the conspiracy theorist just jumps to the next theory and they're happy with that. So it's not a perfect method, but it's something that can actually start to get us on the same page, ideally.
Awesome. Well, it certainly sounds interesting. I think a lot of our viewers are going to be interested in it. It is Road to Omega. And as I said, your work that we discussed in this video is available at Raw Story. Bobby, as always, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
I had a great time. Thanks, John. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.